Welcome to the Irish Pagan School podcast. Your hosts are authors and co-founders of the Irish Pagan School here in County Waterford, Ireland, Laura O'Brien and Jon O'Sullivan. Fáilte.
How many altars is too many altars? Well, Dagda agus Fáilte. Hi, hello, and welcome to Jon O'Sullivan from the Irish Pagan School. And this is the question that we got from one of our patrons who are supporting us over in Patreon. And it's a really good question. It really, really is, for a number of different reasons. Now, they specifically couch it from the point of view of the Tuatha Dé Danann deities, and that's where I'm going to focus. But this can apply to multi-pantheon faiths or belief across pantheons or across cultures. It is something to be aware of because it's more about that practical practices and processes of being a pagan. So what we find is that when people who are exploring their relationship with Irish paganism begin to interact with the deities of the Tuatha Dé Danann, it rarely stays as just a singular deity partnership, as in a one-to-one relationship. Over time, other deities, because they're so close, because they're so kind of clannish or like Tua tribe-like, people describe experiencing other deities stepping in or introducing themselves or having experiences which align less with who they're communicating with and more with some other deity who seems to be making themselves known. Now, it's quite common. It's very, very common, especially since there are a number of particular individuals who have direct relationships. For all the Morrígan people out there, it's unsurprising when they have an experience with the Dagda. Or for all the Dagda people out there, it's unsurprising when they hear from Brigid, his daughter. You know, for all of the skillful people out there, it's unsurprising when it's not just Gwivnu who contacts them, but it's also Credna or Lukta or even Lu. So all of these deities do cross over in so many ways because unlike other expressions of pantheon belief, where it is a singular deity for a particular task, there is a deity of love, a deity of family, a deity of weather, a deity of sun. We don't have that in Ireland. With the Tuatha Dé Danann being multifaceted expressions of deities, there's not one singular thing that you talk to one of them for. You can deal with poetry, or for example, the art, creation, or craft of poetry with at least 5 of them off the top of my head, because Lu is a poet, the Dagda is a poet, the poetry and prophecy is part of the Morrigan. The Brigid is said to be a patron, like a deity specifically who favors poets as well as creating poetry. And then, of course, there's Oma, who is literally the god who made Om, which is the manifestation of sound coupled into matter, because he is a scholar as well, which means poetry. So there's no just one god for one thing, which means that when people begin to build relationship with those deities, sometimes altar space can become a bit of a challenge. I won't say issue, I'm going to say challenge. And then we get questions like, well, can I put this deity next to that deity, or can I put these in here? But so there's a lot of different practical steps that a person needs to do, but getting into the core really of it, the first question has to be, what is an altar and how and why do you use it? So for me, right behind me over here, there's the top of a bookshelf. On top of the bookshelf is a cauldron, and that cauldron is a gift to Ireland, but around and in that cauldron are things that I keep or I offer to the Dagda, the god that I work for. I'm a bit of a weird one in that I write stories about all of the gods, but I work and have a relationship with only one, which is him. Now, I do have a connection or a sideways relationship with the Morrigan because she's his wedded partner. I do have like connections and conversations with Brigid because she's his daughter. So it's not that I'm not engaging with those other deities, but altar space, creating a space of altar, I haven't done that for me. Whereas my partner works with Maeve, works with the Morrigan, has on occasion worked with Monaghan and MacLear. All of these individuals move and are around my partner's altar space. So what is an altar? An altar is anything. An altar is a space where you place items of significance to not just yourself, but to your relationship with the deity that you are building a connection with. And it doesn't even have to be a deity. It could be an ancestor altar for connecting with your ancestors. Whatever your god, guide, guardian is, an altar space is a designated space, a designated place within your own space that you put aside for connection to that relationship. And that's the very important part. So it's not about, I need an entire bookshelf. I need a fancy this. I needed this. I needed that. I have to have an entire room set aside. It's about making sure that in your space, wherever your home space is, whatever its size, whatever its location, that you are making a place or setting aside a place for not that the deity lives there, but you engage with your relationship to that deity in that spot. Now, an example I've had with this, someone has designated altar space in their home and they came and they told me a story and they're like a little bit confused because whenever they tried to make offerings to the Dagda, they would go to their designated altar space, but it always felt odd. And I was like, well, where do you feel him most? Because that's where the relationship is. And they were like, well, honestly, I feel him more in the kitchen. And so instead of taking their offering and placing it in an altar space, they actually made a separate place in their kitchen for honoring the Dagda and that relationship, because that's where the relationship was for them. That's where the strength of it, the connection and the purpose of it was. And so this really gives you a bit of an insight into my stance on how many altars is too many altars, because it's not about the altar. It's not about the particular items, physical presences, whatever it is. It's about spaces that you set aside for engaging in your relationship with God, guide, guardian, whatever it is. Now, there is another spectrum here because it all just exists on a process. I have come into spaces which I have personally found clamoring and noisy, energetically like upsetting and cacophonous, because the person, for their own purposes, it is their own way of doing it. They're like, okay, well, this is where I honor all of my deities in this one particular corner of this entire place. And so everything was crammed in, everything was put, everything was all. And so I walked into that space and it wasn't practical to engage with. It wasn't practical to sit. It wasn't practical or usable to make offerings around those deities because there was no room. Everything was just cluttered and put in on top of each other. And so for me as a sensitive person, I was like wincing whilst having a conversation with this individual because this entire corner, which they had designated as altar space, was just a pick and mix of different various statues, all of which were dedicated and like vocally and energetically dedicated to the deities, which means that the deities were aware of them and had the connections to them because their names had been called for those places, but that everything was on top of each other. And so conversations with that individual, they're talking about how their world is chaos and they have no stability and no order, and I'm trying to help them and to take them through a conversation. But some part of me was like, there's why. Eventually was about clearing space, changing and shifting the energy and trying to make things a little bit more practical for them. Because again, it has to go back to this concept of right relationship. I'm not in my spirituality in order to be fulfilled by my spirituality through a whole like coin slot offering option. Oh, I put this in here for blessings on love. I put this in here for blessings on health. I put this in here for blessings on, like, I don't collect deities like Pokemon. But that doesn't mean that someone can't work with multiple deities if they're willing to put the effort and the energy in to build an equitable, honourable, reciprocal relationship, or the rightness of that relationship. Not as in right and wrong, but like truth, as in honouring, as in correctness of that relationship. And so how many altars is too many altars? It comes down to how many relationships are too many relationships. How much bandwidth, space, time, energy, effort do you have to offer through all of these relationships so that you're honoring each of those relationships where they need to be honored? that really is the core question here, because it's not about, oh, well, I can only have five or I can only have four and it's one in, one out or anything like that at all. Now, again, relationships change. You might find that you're working with a particular deity for a period of time, but then after a while, they're like, okay, well, actually, we're good. Our work is done here. I'm going to, introduce you to another God, guide, guardian to carry on your journey with as you grow. In which case, there needs to be room for relationships to grow and relationships to end. But then other relationships, like me and my bestie here, I'm gesturing at the Dagda altar because him and I are never going to drift. Even though sometimes he's busy elsewhere. I have the space that I keep for him. And so the way I use that is by acknowledging it when I come past it, interacting with it, placing my offerings there every day, going past and making sure it's not I need to pick up, clean up, tidy, dust, or anything like that at all. Any maintenance practical that I need to do on that, which allows me to then center my sense of thought, energy, effort around my relationship with the Dagda. And that's what that place is for. In the entire space of this environment in our home office, that particular place is for Dagda connected relationship stuff and not anything else. So I don't put pens there. I don't put my own mugs down there. I don't leave other like documents or anything on that space. It is specifically for that relationship that I have with him. And by honoring that, I engage with it every day. So it goes to, I did a video about doing offerings, and people were like, how long should I leave the offering on the altar space? If you're engaging with your relationship, if you're engaging with your connected relationship with your deity, God, guide, guardian, whatever it is, on a regular enough basis, you'll know exactly when to remove anything from the altar if it's no longer serving, no longer fit, or needs to be discarded or cleaned and put back. So there is no upper limit, but it is about what is an honest and honourable connection and view of yourself and your ability to offer connection within those relationships. If I was to try and set up an entire altar or an individual altar space for each of the Tuatha Dé Danann deities that I know the name of, I'd need to have an entire separate building. I'd need to have like an IPS corporate headquarters where I could, or pretty much a temple. I need to have a temple to the Tuatha Dé Danann in order to give them all separate alcoves to honor their own separate spaces and to honor the relationship uniquely within each of those spaces. Now, not all of us have a temple, but it is about making a place in whatever space you do have, but that space has to be about a particular focused relationship. Now, that doesn't mean you can't put Monanan next to Macha and ask them both for conversations or questions. That doesn't mean you can't have, the Morrígan next to the Dagda, because they're a couple. Like, it's about understanding the lore, the connection, and the knowledge. If I was to try and follow or engage with a connection with Ruadan, the son of Brigid, I probably wouldn't put him next to Gwivnu, given that it was Ruadan who tried to kill Gwivnu, but Gwivnu who killed Ruadan. So that's where the mythology, the lore, and the information can begin to give you insights and perspectives on what is going to be a practical and usable space for your relationships with your gods, guides, guardians. And that's really what it has to always come back to. So to answer the question straight, neat answer, not hard to say, there is no such thing as too many altars, as long as each altar is a space that you can practically use to engage in a right and honorable relationship with your God, guide, or guardian for that space. So hopefully that gives a bit of insight and a bit of perspective. It's easy to fall down a rabbit hole of like, okay, well, this deity has presented himself, so I have to build an altar space, or this deity has presented himself, so I have to. Your first port of call really should be within yourself. Engage in guided meditation, grab a journal, begin to document information, experience your meditation and build towards that relationship, because not all deities, gods, guides, guardians, ancestors are looking for altar space. They might just be looking for a conversation. They might just be looking to engage with you on a particular aspect, and then you move on from that moment or from that association. or they might be looking to engage with you in a particular practice. As in, you need to go and work in your garden, and that then is no longer, you don't need an altar space. You're then engaging with your deity, God, guide, guardian, whatever it is, in your garden space, because you're then cultivating, growing, caring, weeding, whatever work needs doing. So it's not about aligning a particular like nook, cranny, bookshelf, table, or anything. It's about finding those places within your space that you engage in practical processes around your spirituality. And so I have an altar space with a Dagda here, but I do also feel a Dagda when I'm cooking. When I have my hands on a bowl of flour and I'm kneading out some bread or something like that, that's it. I'm driving in the car when I'm out and about on my own. Sometimes I just feel his presence in the backseat of the car. So all of these places, all of this relationship is what makes the spirituality happen. So it doesn't have to be a physical defined place, but to honor and build and deepen a relationship, having those spaces can make it easier. So I think I've talked around it from a number of different angles here. I do honestly hope that that has answered the quest or question. And again, thank you very much to all of our patrons who support us in Patreon. If you have any other questions, fire them down into the comments. I always love trying to engage with them as best I can. And until next time, look after yourself. Oh, sorry. Do make sure you pick up the free resources. They're always there. irishpagan.school/free. As much as I'm trying to share insights, perspective, and information, it is also about getting stuck in, doing the reading, doing the work, because that's the real way you will find your proper resonance or truth with how you're going to build your relationship in your spirituality for yourself. I'm not the answer to everything, but I am a guidepost, and I hopefully can help with some suggestions and perspectives. So yes, definitely look after yourself. Take care. And until next time, slán. Goodbye.
If you enjoyed this podcast, please leave us a positive review in your podcast listener. Then head over to irishpaganschool.com and enroll in one of our free or paid courses. Slán go fóill, and we will see you next time.